Policy. Pete McGuire from XM.com, Chief Exec, live in our Sydney CBD studio. Pete, welcome to you. What are the signs, the signals that suggest we're on track to roll that one over, or could there be not just one but several flies in the old ointment?
Well, good afternoon, Carson. I think first off, if you look back at Kuwait and that meeting that they had on the 26th of March, that gave us something to look forward to as far as that May 25 meeting in Vienna. That time frame of those 2 months, the jury's still out whether we're going to see a rollover or what happens with the Saudi cuts and where does Russia play. So there's a fair bit of water to pass under the bridge over the next matter of, say, 3 to 4 weeks. And say early May, we should have a fairly clear understanding of what the betting numbers are.
In the meantime, the complicating factor is, again, Trump's latest intentions. We're looking, Mark, at what kind of levels?
824, so they've rallied by about 15 to the end of the month. Yeah.
Now, if that's not sort of a shale creep by stealth, what is, Pete?
Well, exactly right, Carson. You know, those numbers that Mark's just called out, just for the viewers, they're the strongest. That last quarter, January to March, was the strongest quarter since around about 2011. So the US refiners, the US drillers, the US shale are all very much engaged, and you can see those numbers are just, building week on week and month on month. So we expect that to continue over the Northern Hemisphere the next summer and, of course, this leading quarter.
It's really interesting. So you kind of come back into the position of talking about, the output story and how that
technology.
And they're clearly streets ahead of any of us down here, aren't they?
Yeah, Pete, isn't it one of the themes that the challenge has been when you are trying to regulate the volume of oil, that the technology is changing so that they can take so much more out of these wells.
That's right,
and they're saying, last I looked, there were over 9.1 billion a day, 9.1 million a day barrels of oil. When the US, that's right, they were at 8 million and they're now 9.1. OPEC becomes just, an anagram for something other than what it should be.
Well, exactly, and that's probably the very much the fly in the ointment as far as OPEC's concerned. Where does the US move forward? What happens as far as President Trump over this first year to 2 years of his tenure? And is he really going to put the foot further on the floor to possibly see a 10 number or a 10.5 handle as far as production? So all of those unknowns are very much rolling into the equation at the moment. There could be tax concessions or whatever is prepared to make something happen. But we do know one thing, he's certainly not a president to sit on his hands.
No.
And it's intriguing as well. Meanwhile, the LNG stories that plays out here, I wonder if you've got a view on this one, Adam, because I'm just looking at the US story. The call-out is Conoco's CEO Ryan Lance talking at a gas conference in Japan. I'm surprised you weren't there, Pete, incidentally, saying LNG exports are likely to slow with rising demand for cheap gas at home unless overseas buyers like Japan are willing to pay higher prices, commit to long-term contracts. High energy prices are required to justify, though, the investments, because there's a glut of LNG and cheap nat gas on the spot market. So
exactly.
if that's the backdrop, who profits down under?
Well, just a couple of things on that. I was in Doha only about a week and a half ago talking to energy people, and of course Qatar is #1 as far as exporter in the world at the moment. But they're only just fractionally ahead, and we believe that by sometime in 2017 Australia will be #1. So, but that could be short-lived because our dear friend Mr. Putin has got an agenda, and he's saying that he wants Russia to be #1 as far as the global exporter. So there's a few vying for that place on the mantle, and in turn, where does Iran play on this? Because they're producing at record numbers as well. So there's a race to the top at the moment as far as LNG, and as you've said, price has been washed out a little. So it's going to be a very interesting 17, 18, and 19 for that whole energy sector.
Pete, it's Adam here from Shores.
Yes, Adam.
Obviously, with the current conditions that at the moment, they're not favourable for any major investment into greenfield production or greenfield developments.
Yes.
So it looks like in 2017, it's going to be a quiet year for that. But we need further investment to avoid any more shortages.
Of course, as was demonstrated by the US shale.
Yeah, correct.
One thing, Adam, if you look at oil, they're saying it could be a peak as far as 2030. Some people have pushed it out, analysts, to 2042. But there's an appetite that's growing year on year as far as LNG. So that appetite, we don't believe, is going to dissipate or take, some sort of holiday season going in the same as its brother being crude oil. It's actually going to increase over the better part of this whole century. So that's where Australia is very well positioned. Of course, the Middle East and the likes of Qatar are very, very, conscious of that. And of course, where Mr. Putin is.
Yeah, it's interesting. Meanwhile, just switching commodities, Rio's chief has been talking to the FT, Jean-Sébastien Jacques, sitting down. A nice video piece there with Neil Hume, their commodities editor, so you might like to check in on that sometime soon. But go bigger picture, Pete, as well, and just talk to some of the concerns or, I suppose, issues even from the cyclone that we've seen down under. How does that play into the bigger global food inflation topic or otherwise?
We'll go first off to coking coal, Carson, and we'll move across to foods. But at coking coal, it had a wonderful rally up, 15% yesterday. We do know that Queensland produces or exports best part of over 50% of global. So that you could see another ratchet up. Just depends on how long that supply line or that the weather conditions will work through. You could see a 180, 185 handle as far as coking coal. Yeah, put your mind across now to agriculture. Yes, it's certainly a great concern as far as those farmers and crop productions and what's going to happen as far as our food basket over this winter period. So unfavourable conditions are the Mother Nature curse as far as farmers. We see that in the US, we see it in the Ukraine and Russia, and certainly we felt it last week with our dear brothers up there in North Queensland and, of course, on the northern New South Wales area.
I think it also flows on then to not onto commodities, but then onto Horizon AZJ. They are going to obviously struggle with the rail also for Debbie as well. They'll be out for 1 to at least 2 weeks also. So that's going to hit Horizon on the back of that.
Watching their shares today, which were off 1.1%. Pete, we may have to call time, unfortunately, on things, but thank you so much as always.
Thank you, Carson.
XM.com, Chief